זמן עבר, past tense. So now we're going to talk about the past tense in Hebrew. We're going to learn how do we implement all of the knowledge that we received, at least about the names of the binyanim, to finding the reference point, and how do we start conjugating verbs in Hebrew in the past tense. So first of all, let's look at what is a root. Let's refresh our memories. What is a root in Hebrew? So root in Hebrew is shoresh, and Hebrew is a root system language, something that you probably already know. The Hebrew root system is the main building block of words. The root contains an image, an idea, but not a word. So most Hebrew verbs have 3 root letters. The root is reflected as follows. So that's all nice. So this is what we know. So this is how the root will be represented. Usually the root gives us an image. So far we know that we have a root for each word in Hebrew, and this is an essential knowledge when we're going to start conjugating verbs in Hebrew, especially when we're talking about the past tense. So we're going to see this kind of template, and usually the X stands for a letter, and the letters in the root will be separated by dots. And now let's talk about the concept of root positions. So each root has a certain sequence in its formation. So we know that the root will be represented as follows. We should always keep in mind that this one is the first root letter, the middle one is always the second root letter, and the left one will be always the third root letter. Why in this order? Well, simply because in Hebrew, everything is written from right to left. It doesn't make sense, doesn't it? Now let's take a look at the names of the binyans again. So the names of the binyans are Pa'al, Pi'el, Hif'il, Hitpa'el, Huf'al, Pu'al, Nif'al. So obviously I highlighted in yellow the letters that are repetitive. So what all of the binyans have in common? All binyans have the same letters in their name in the same order. So let's take a look at the root template again. So the letter that always comes first in each binyan, and that always will appear there, is the letter Pei. The second one in order that will appear in every binyan is the letter Ain. And the third and last one that will always appear in all names of the binyan is the letter Lamed. So therefore, we know from that the name of the binyans, all of them, have the same letters in the same order in their names. Therefore, according to that, Pei will always represent the first root letter, Ain will always represent the second root letter, and Lamed will always represent the third root letter. Therefore, having that knowledge in our mind, let's see how do we actually implement that knowledge into finding the reference point when we are conjugating verbs in the past tense in Hebrew. So let's take the verb Lmod. So Lmod, we know it contains the root Lamed, Mem, Dalet. So in order to find the reference point, we always need to start with third person singular masculine in Hebrew, the pronoun hu, which means he in Hebrew. So why do we use the conjugation for third person singular masculine in the past tense as our reference point? Well, the reason is that pronoun will always follow the sound of the binyan. And as we know, lilmod is a simple action, therefore it belongs to the binyan pa'al. So in order to find out what he did, usually this is how I started my journey as a Hebrew tutor. My students were asking me, what's the binyan of this verb? And I was thinking to myself, what he did yesterday, because this is how our Hebrew teacher told us to do when we want to find out what is the binyan, what he did yesterday, and the vowels will be very similar to the name of the binyan. Okay, so therefore we see the root. We see the root Lamed Mem Dalet. So as we know, according to root positions, Lamed is represented by the Pei, Mem is represented by the Ain, And the third and final root letter, which is dalet, is represented by the lamed. So what we need to do is to replace the letter pei, ain, and lamed of the name of the binyan, which is pa'al, with the respective root letters lamed, mem, dalet, leaving the same vowel signs the name of the binyan has. Since binyan pa'al has an a pattern in it, so therefore lamed, mem, dalet will follow the same pattern, just replacing lamed, mem, dalet with the respective letters of the name of the binyan. So therefore, in order to find what he did, it will follow the sound of the binyan. So hu pa'al, hu lamad. Hu lamad. This is the reference point. This is what we start with. The root letters of the verb will follow the sound of the binyan when we are conjugating verbs in Hebrew in the past tense. We first start with him. Hu lamad. Let's see another example. The verb lelamed, to teach, also contains the root lamed, mem, daled. And as we know, we always need to start with third person singular masculine, the pronoun hu in Hebrew. And as we know, lelamed is to teach. So it means that the teacher has a certain interaction or influence on his students. And it's a more intense action than pa'al. Therefore, lelamed belongs to PL. So lelamed belongs to PL. So now what we need to do, so we see the name of the binyan, PL. So in order to find out what he did, we need to replace the letters of the name of the binyan, pei, ain, and lamed, with the respective root letters. So lamed will replace the pei, mem will replace the ain, and dalet will replace the lamed. Therefore, he taught will be hu limed, because it follows the sound of the binyan. Because the name of the binyan is PL, so he taught will be hu limed. Lamed, mem, dalet is a root that gives us an image of studying, of learning, teaching, etc. So if we will put the root letters lamed, mem, dalet into the name of the binyan pa'al, so we'll replace pei with lamed, ain with mem, and lamed with dalet in the same order, we'll receive the reference point lamad, he studied. If we'll do the same with PL, it will be limed, he taught. So this is what we start with when we're conjugating verbs in the past tense in Hebrew. We first start with third person singular masculine, the pronoun hu, while replacing the root letters in the same order and placing them into the name of the binyan, because the conjugation for third person singular masculine will follow the vowels of the binyan. Pa'al, lamad, PL, limed. Let's see another example, the verb lilbosh. Lilbosh contains the root letters lamed, bet, shin. And we are always starting with third person singular masculine in order to find the reference point, the pronoun hu. And we know that that pronoun always follows the sound of the binyan, which is pa'al. So what we need to do is to replace the letter pei with the letter lamed, the letter ain with the letter bet, and the letter shin with the letter lamed. So he wore something, hu lavash, hu lavash. So hu pa'al, hu lavash. You might notice that the dagesh dropped from lilbosh, from the bet. This is usually what is typical for pa'al verbs. When we have a dagesh on the second root letter, it will drop from lilbosh, it will become lavash. So hu pa'al, hu lavash. It follows the sound of the binyan. Let's see another example, the verb lehalbish, which we know is to dress someone up. The same root letters. We always start with third person singular masculine, the pronoun hu. So lehalbish is to dress someone up, so it is an action we perform on someone else. So the binyan is hif'il. So what we need to do is to replace the respective letters pei, ayin, lamed with the root letters in the same order in order to find the reference point. What he did, he dressed someone up. So lamed will replace the pei, bet will replace the ayin, and shin will replace the lamed. Hu hif'il, hu hilbish. So here we see it follows the sound of the binyan. Hu hif'il, hu hilbish. What we did is we replaced the letters pei, ayin, lamed respectively with the root letters in the same order, and essentially we put it into the template in order for it to follow the sound of the binyan, which is hif'il. Let's take another example, the verb lehitlabesh. Lehitlabesh also contains the root letters lamed, bet, shin. Lehitlabesh is the verb to get dressed or to dress up. So we always remember that we are starting with the conjugation of third person singular masculine, the pronoun hu. And this time the binyan is hit pa'el because lehitlabesh is a reflexive action because it is to get dressed. I'm now naked, I need to lehitlabesh, I need to get dressed. So in order to find what he did, always we follow the sound of the binyan. How we do that? Well, we will replace the root letters with the respective letters of the name of the binyan. Lamed will replace the pei, bet will replace ayin, and shin will replace lamed. So the binyan is hit pa'el, so he got dressed, hu hitlabesh, hu hitlabesh. So let's wrap it up what we have so far. We'll take the root lamed, bet, shin, which gives us an idea, an image of getting dressed, of wearing clothes. If we will apply it to pa'al, so applying lamed, bet, shin into the name of the binyan pa'al, we'll receive the reference point lavash. It means he wore something. Hif'il, so he dressed someone, will be hilbish because it follows the sound of the binyan. Hitpa'el will be hitlabesh, got dressed. So this is what we started with. When we are conjugating verbs in the past tense, we take the root and we apply the root letters into the name of the binyan, replacing the letters pei, ayin, lamed in the same order and finding out what he did yesterday. Once we did it, then we continue forward. So what about first and second person pronouns? So we know first person is I and we, second person is you. So this is the person I'm addressing it. So in Hebrew we have several ways of addressing you. It can be you masculine singular, you feminine singular, so me addressing something to a man, to a woman, or you masculine plural, so I'm addressing something to a group of men, or you feminine plural, so I'm addressing something to a group of women. So this is first and second person. Let's see what are the guidelines. Ani, just like the ending of the personal pronoun, will always end with T. What will happen before T depends on the binyan. Ata, just like the ending of the pronoun, will always end with ta. At always ends with t. Anachnu, just like the ending of the personal pronoun anachnu, will always end with nu. I want you to be careful with it because it will be the one that has no T sound. For example, lamad, anachnu, lamadnu, and some students may add a T sound there. Lamadtnu, don't do that. Always keep in mind that nu has no T sound in its conjugation suffix. Anachnu always ends with nu. Ani ends with T, ata ends with ta, at ends with t, anachnu ends with nu. Atem, just like the ending of the pronoun itself, will end with tem. Aten will always end with ten. So, ani ends with T, ata, just like the ending, ends with ta, at ends with t, anachnu ends with nu, atem ends with tem, aten ends with ten. What will happen before that will always depend on the binyan itself. Third person pronouns conjugation. So third person is he, she, or they. Who will always depend on the binyan. So if we know the conjugation for third person singular masculine will always follow the sound of the binyan. If it will be pa'al, it will sound like pa'al, so lamad, lavash, avad, etc. If it's hif'il, so hilbish, hirgish, hikshiv. If it will be hitpa'el, hitlabesh, itkatev, itrachetz, etc. So the conjugation for third person singular masculine will depend on the binyan. He will always have a suffix in the form of the letter hey, and the letter standing before the letter hey will always have an a vowel, a kamatz. For example, hu lamad, he lamda. Hu avad, he avda. We're going to learn it when we're going to start learning binyanim and to see what is the conjugation pattern of them. Hem and hen, the pronouns hem and hen, will always have the same conjugation in the past tense, and they will always end with a vav that has an u vowel. So, for example, hu lamad, hem lamdu. Hu avad, hem avdu. Don't confuse it with anachnu. Anachnu ends with nu. This one ends with u. Anachnu lamadnu, hem lamdu. Well, obviously, we're going to cover a few verbs just to get the feeling of how do we actually conjugate verbs in the past tense in Hebrew. So that's it for this overview of how do we start conjugating verbs in the past tense in Hebrew. That's it for this lecture, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one.